Todd, welcome back to SuperChat.
Good afternoon, Gary. How are you?
I'm just fine, sir. I always enjoy our conversations, and as we have been doing on a regular basis with each and every podcast, I'd like to begin by asking you to provide our listeners the very latest regarding your master facility project for Northwest Local School District.
Yeah, we are fully engaged in this process. Just to give the listeners an update, on May 23rd and 24th, we pulled in basically approximately 50 folks who were a combination of 5 teachers from each of our 5 elementary buildings that are getting new schools, an administrator from each building, community members, parents, and curriculum office, maintenance, technology, every aspect of the school, all pulled together in 2 days of meetings that look at 21st century school design. It's really neat to take the challenge of trying to look at what education will be like in 5 years, much less 50 years, which is what we expect the buildings to last, anywhere from 50 to 75 years. So looking at how technology is changing, instructional strategies, teachers' approach to changing, what classrooms should look like, we've came up with a pretty good concept that pretty much can fit any need. So we're looking at an open environment where we have the availability to have the old style rooms where you have walls on all 4 sides and a door going out, but also walls that are movable, can be opened up so classrooms can combine and do team teaching. They all surround an extended learning area, which could be pods of tables, couches, small desks that are mobile and can be moved around, but opportunities for some teaming and flooding to go on, where what that means is that teachers may give an assessment. There'll be students who got it, didn't get it, and need some intervention. There'll be students who got it and did really well and who need some enrichment. So these extended learning areas will allow them to do some small group work, make sure that students can move forward at their own pace, and give teachers the ability to collaborate, team teach, break up their classes. It's not the old school type where you had this one classroom, you had a teacher's desk in it, and everybody's teaching from the front of the room. The teachers will have their own teaching pod where they might teach in a different learning area every day, depending on what their lesson design is. So it's flexible spaces, it's spaces that can be changed, it's spaces that can adapt to technology needs. The number one goal we came out of it is that we will have one-to-one technology for all students K through 5. So Chromebooks accessible, making sure that we use the greatest resource we have, which is the internet and all the resources that are out there. But again, this is a drastic change from the last 10 years and what education has moved to. Yes, technology is very important, but it was a big piece of what we did. So that part met, and now we're on the sites. And the sites are always interesting because you have to do soil boring samples, and you never know what you're going to find. You might think you have a good piece of property to build on, but once you bore down and see what's underneath it, things have to be moved, things have to be changed, and that's what we're in the process of doing right now. So simultaneously, while our architect is designing what the building will look like with our input, we are also starting to look at where the footers will go, the bases, the direction of the building, the shape of the building. Pleasant Run Elementary, we did make what I consider to be a major change. We are now looking at moving Pleasant Run Elementary up on the hill and behind Pleasant Run Middle School. This does several things. It gives access for kids to go back and forth. So if we have some gifted 5th graders who might want to go to the middle school and get some gifted services, that's a possibility. We have the possibility of some 8th graders coming out of the middle school and going down to the elementaries and doing some flashcards for math or some reading with our K1 and 2 kids. So that's advantageous. We are putting a full-size high school gym inside each of our elementaries. Not the seating, but just the floor and a little extra seating. But right now, Pleasant Run Middle School is a prime example of where they have probably the smallest middle school floor in the state. You basically have about 3 foot behind the 3-point line before you get to half court. So it's very short, very narrow. So now these kids can go over there and practice. We can share staff. They can go back and forth, whether it be custodial, classified, certified. It just gives us a lot of options. So the Pleasant Run Elementary site is getting very exciting. The Struble site, the school will be moved beside the current building instead of behind it. Behind Struble is a floodplain. We don't want to mess with that floodplain. So we are going to go beside Struble. So as you face the front of Struble, it would be to the left side. They will have some construction on Struble itself next year, as they'll have to take down 4 classrooms, 2 on each wing that go out toward the new building. And that's just because we need the extra space to make it fit on our current property. And then lastly is Taylor. Taylor's new building will be between Taylor and the bus garage, just a flatter piece of land, an easier option to put it in. So as I say, these are our sites right now. We were able to save a lot of money by not having to purchase land and stay on our current sites. But even with these current sites, there are still some challenges that we are facing that's going to cost money in order to make them happen. Again, with traffic studies, making sure we're going from schools of 400 to 450 to 900, you want to make sure your traffic flow is going to be able to go in and out. So it's an exciting time, but it's a very busy time as we try to figure out everything in what direction we're going.
Wow, your description, I think you started it well. You're fully engulfed. This is an overwhelming process. I find the whole concept of this 2-day meetup with these 50 individual representatives from a cross-section of the community getting together and thinking what will be needed, that has to be an extraordinarily taxing mental process to just throw all this up at the wall and try to collaborate and put it all together into a meaningful, thought-out package. I would find that exciting, but, maybe others, they'd be frustrated.
It's exciting and scary at times. So you'd look at some eyes of the audience of who we were talking to. And luckily, we had some experts from ODE, from the Ohio School Facility Commission. And some of their eyes were getting really wide and really big, seeing what education is predicted to be like 10 and 15 years down the road. So like you said, exciting at one minute, but scary the next.
Yes, yes. Well, Todd, let me ask you this. You have wrapped up academically the 2015-16 school year. So how many graduating seniors did you have in the graduation ceremony in the class of 2016 last week?
Yeah, for Northwest High School, we had 206 graduate. And from Colerain High School, we had 420. Northwest is about half the size of Colerain, so numbers are pretty much half of the other.
Are there any standout characteristics about any members of the class?
Yeah, it was pretty neat to be at graduation. Both schools had any students who were seniors who took Butler Tech programs and were certified in those areas. And I'm not talking they all went through engineering classes or they went through drafting classes or auto tech or anything like that, but students who actually took Butler Tech classes that helped them graduate. And what was amazing, out of the 206 at Northwest, I'd say about 150 kids stood up. Out of the 420 at Colerain, I'd say about 320 stood up. And, we've been seeing a decline in enrollment, but we have so many kids who are entering the Butler Tech Field program. It is outstanding, the pathways to graduation these kids now have. Everybody used to push four-year college. Well, you can do just as well in a 2-year college now, and you can do just as well in a Butler Tech program like we've talked about all year. So that was amazing in itself. And then they announced the scholarships for each school. Northwest High School, when you added the entire senior class together, had about $3.9 million in scholarships for their students, which is just amazing. Colerain High School, out of the 420, they had over $5 million of combined scholarships that were offered to their students. So these kids have worked very hard, and just to have these opportunities and to be able to go through a Butler Tech Field and go that pathway, or to go to a 2-year college because of College Credit Plus classes or AP classes, or a 4-year college, our students have done an outstanding job.
There are so many unique opportunities for graduating seniors now, just as opposed to 5 years ago. I mean, things are just really rotating and changing. As with as many schools that I talk with on a regular basis, day in and day out, I get a real cross-sectional look at what's going on, whether it be a blended approach or even these online independent charters that operate that's total tech. There's all these extremes. Well, what we would call extremes compared to traditional approaches. But the opportunities that are available for actually ready, set, go kind of skills to develop them when they come out of school, they can be ready to hit the ground running. And I think in decades past, a little bit of that existed, but I think we lost sight of it. And there became so much of a finite focus on this whole 4-year goal that we lost sight of doing things with our hands and building extraordinarily enriching careers. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm finding some real shakeup going on that is exciting, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're talking about is exactly what we see K through 12. Kids are different. That's what makes them unique. That's why we got into education, to meet individual needs. And some kids are hands-on, and they want to have hands-on in order to do well. You take fractions, and they have fraction stacks they can use in 5th, 6th, 7th grade just to get moving forward. It's just different ways of learning. And then to be able to take it into high school, and we've talked about this before, a welder leaving Butler Tech, not even going to school, starting at $50,000, $60,000 a year because there's a shortage. Just providing kids with opportunities. We understand there are certain jobs that need little or no skills, but we want all our kids to leave with great skills that can get them anywhere they want to be. Because, it's very hard as a high school sophomore, junior, senior to figure out what you want to do with your life. So the more options we give them, the better off they're going to be.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's face it. There's a lot of adults out there that don't know what they want to be. I mean, so, yeah, it's a little unrealistic to expect that as soon as you throw that 18-year-old switch on the calendar of life that you're supposed to know what you want to do. I mean, it happens for each individual at a different rate, different pace, and in a different way. And I just think that the opportunity exists for every one of those categories now. It's not so compartmentalized as it used to be, but this is wonderful. Wow. In this report on the facility master plan, yeah, you guys are off and running. Well, let me ask you this. I want to switch gears a little bit, Todd. The formal school year is over, and I'm sure administratively the summer is pretty full with wrapping up things at the central office, but there are summer school events and activities I'm sure that you have planned for the schools of Northwest Local. Can you give us some highlights of the kind of things that will be going on during this summer break?
We are offering some summer reading programs for our little ones. We do have some OGT is still out there, the Ohio graduation test, so we have to offer that test to make sure those students who have not met those requirements yet through AIR or OGT have the opportunity to do that. But mostly the schools are in cleaning mode, shutting down. We do have some summer school programs going on at Northwest High School, some of our middle schools and some of our elementaries. But everything's getting pretty quiet. If I could go back to graduation just for a minute, I have to applaud the community and parents of Northwest High School and Colerain High School. I have gone to many graduations in my 27 years of education. And unfortunately, to me, graduations have become too much of a celebration to the point where they're screaming. There's air horns, there's balloons, there's parents screaming out kids' names or yay or as happy as can be, and you can't hear the next kid's name. I can tell you 100% that the graduation at Northwest High School and Colerain High School was the best two this year I've seen in my 27 years. Parents were respectful. Alumni who were there were respectful. Family members were respectful. Every kid got to hear their name. They were loud and proud. And the parents did a great job of waiting till each row was called. And then they stood up and they gave a loud applause. But it shows, and it's very obvious, the expectations of the teachers and administrators at both high school, that they can go through a graduation ceremony that is so dignified, so respectful, and just really shows kids how you're supposed to behave. And I compare them to school districts around us, and it's an absolute joke what some of them allow, and nothing's done. But Colerain High School and Northwest High School, it was an honor and a privilege to be on stage to see how well the community, the parents, the students, everybody behaved. And it just shows the high expectations they have at Northwest and Colerain. So I'd like to give them a big round of applause for that. And then lastly, we had some kids in the armed forces from Northwest High School, 6 total, who are going into the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and 8 at Colerain High School. And it's just neat to see the standing ovation for these kids and everybody understanding that our freedoms are not taken for granted. And it's folks like this who help us. So although there's not a lot going on this summer, we're still riding a high from this spring and our 2 graduations and everything that was going on. And it was just an honor to be a part of it.
Wonderful summation. Yeah, I'm so glad that you came back around on that because that's so wonderful to hear. I can't add anything to it. That's a perfect description of what you would expect and hope for in a graduation ceremony and a reaction to those enlisting in the military. This is red, white, and blue American, folks.